Hey, everyone, welcome to the podcast. Always a pleasure to have good brother and fellow mensch, Mr. Eli Weber, here to get his insights on what's going on in his world, his channel, and also share with him a little bit of cursory knowledge that we have been blessed with that will hopefully benefit his community as well. And it's just a nice fireside chat. So, welcome. If you are new to the podcast, please do like, subscribe, and share, and hit that personalization button so you don't miss a moment of the action. Eli, how are you doing today, good sir?
We're doing great. We're a little ahead of schedule, and that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. That's awesome. And I'm glad you're safe and well during this crazy time. I guess that's probably a good, maybe as good as any you and I can just riff off anything. But given where you are in Arizona and looking juxtaposed across to Florida and that area, what's your take on what's going on over there? And ultimately, do you see something positive coming out of all the quagmire?
Yes, I mean, this is a very interesting question because I, I I'm seeing a lot of information now coming out about are the white hats really in control? Why are they allowing this to happen?
Mhm.
And I think what people really don't understand what's going on from a three-dimensional rational kind of way of understanding things. In other words, why is this one dying? Why is that? These kinds of thoughts. We are in the middle of, in my opinion, of a major war. Probably the war to end all wars. This is
Mhm.
this is the biggest war ever, and it's not being fought. It is, there are guns, there are airplanes, there are munitions, there are underground bases, there are all these things. But the war is really a war for the survival of humanity. And it's winner takes all. And there are going to be casualties. And there is a strategy at play using what they call game theory, which is like super or supra rational. In other words, it doesn't operate from a kind of traditional vantage point where you have, okay, you have 100 guns on this side, 100 guns on that side, four grenades here, five grenades. It's not about that. This is a war for the heart and soul of humanity, of human beings. So at the end of this war, when we win it, which we must, if we don't win, it will, we have to win.
It's not
And
even an option.
right, we can't, failure is not an option. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, when we are finished with all these things, and you might be pulling your hair out saying, why would the white hats let people die in North Carolina? Why would they let FEMA do what they did? Why would, all these kinds of rational thoughts do not really un, do not really appreciate the desperate nature of this conflict. But at the end of the day, and I think I come across as a little bit, but I just finished my other recording for the day. But at the end of this, what does victory look like? Victory, with all due respect to all the financial things,
Yeah, yeah.
vic- yeah, victory is not about us getting rich. We will be rich. We will not worry about money. When this is over, you will not ever think, you will not be thinking, oh my, I can't afford that. I mean, it's just like, I mean, I
Right.
live like that now. I consider myself rather poor. I'm rather poor, but I basically, if we need something, we buy it. We don't think, Danielle and I are like, how do we accomplish getting this object? Like, we needed fuses. Well, I blew up my fuse circuits in the RV a couple nights ago. We don't think to ourselves, can we afford new fuses? We just go down and buy it. Somehow we figure out a way to buy it. But at the end of this conflict, what victory looks like is not it's not just that you will be wealthy beyond. In other words, you will be so wealthy you won't need to think about money. You won't have to think about, well, can I afford, I really want to buy 45 gold eagles. You won't even, you'd be like, you just go buy it. It will, that's the way the world is heading, in my opinion. But what the real victory is that we will no longer be limited by thinking that's been imposed upon us by other by Satanists, by bad people that don't want you to achieve your true potential. And what does that mean? I mean, people talk about this, you're a multidimensional being, you're spiritual, all this stuff. What it really boils down to is listening to your inner voices, is hearing your inner voices, is connecting with, I think Jonathan would say, connecting to spirit. And I'm watching this series with Danielle called The Manifest, and they call it the calling. I got the calling. What is the calling? The calling is that every human being has within them a prophet. We all have the ability to what you might call prophesizing. It's not prophesizing. It's just connecting with your soul. It's connecting with your higher force and understanding that things do not have to happen in a rational way. That
Mm.
you can get, like, I used the example yesterday. I I have to drive on very difficult roads to get out of here. It's 10 miles on back roads. And yesterday, for a minute, for a second, I stopped focusing on what I was not laser focused on driving, just for a second. And in 1 millisecond, my truck, basically two wheels of my truck, started falling into the canyon. It was like a really horrible situation. We jumped out of the truck, Danielle and I, onto the upside of the truck. The truck was just stationary there. But I got a calling, and this is where we're heading. This is the consciousness that we're heading to. The calling said to me, Ellie, this is about you reaching out and making friends. This is about relationships. You At the end of this, you are going to do something it's not about the truck. The truck was hanging on, there were two tires on the thing. It's not about the truck. It's not about the dinars. It's not about the price of gold. Okay, you may think it is, and that's a beautiful thing to study. I'm not knocking it.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, you're going to understand that there's a transcendent force that everyone has the ability to access. It's not, you don't have to do anything special. You just have to not do all the things you're used to doing, which is worrying, which is being scared, which is reaching
Mhm.
out to experts, which is pleasing, going by the matrix. Like, the matrix says I have to have insurance, so I have to, I have to do it. It's the way, all that stuff. Just get out of that. And that's what we've done up here.
Yeah.
And trust the
Mhm.
inner voices. So the voice said it's all about communing, because the truth of the matter is, I'm a hard-headed dude, man, and I will not reach out to anybody. I would rather practically die than ask for help. So here I am with two tires off the road. So what did it force me to do? I had to ask for help. I don't like asking for help, but I asked for help. Remember, the calling said to me, it's not about the truck, it's about relationship. So I ended up calling. I didn't know who to call at first. I ended up calling the only two people that I know in this area. I have two neighbors who communicate with me on a regular basis. And I said, my truck is stuck off the road. And the long and the short of it is, they came in. One of my friends has a truck, and he was able to pull it off the road, and we got off the road. But the whole thing is here that you might be thinking, oh my God, if the White Hats were in control, why did North Carolina happen? Why did this happen? Why did this happen in the medical thing? Why did this happen in the financial thing? Why don't I not have enough money for groceries? All these things, kind of like when you look back in World War II, you think to yourself, well, man, why didn't they just get out of there? And now we're faced with the same situation in Florida. It's like, you don't want to leave your house. I'm going to leave my house because somebody's telling me there's a big storm coming. It's like, I'll stay in my house. So the thing is, at the end of this war, you and I and everybody else will understand that it's those quiet little voices that say, "Don't worry about the truck, man. It's about relationship." We had a big kumbaya. All the my three and Danielle, four of us were together, and we had a beautiful. We spent about a half hour just shooting the breeze and talking about the neighborhood, and really. And one of my friends said, the neighborhood is really coming together. We're the neighborhood, four people on. We're talking about 200 acres up here. I mean, 300, we're talking about a huge expanse of land. You can't even imagine how much, open land is up here. But, you know, so so what I would say is, like, if you're looking at the details, you're going to miss the whole picture. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be looking at the price of the dinars. I think it's very important, and I think it gives us hope. And I look at the price of the dinars. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that at the end of this war, you and I and everybody else will be firmly rooted in the idea that we just know things, and we don't necessarily know why we know things, but that that I believe is what the victory looks like in this war. We will trust ourselves.
Really good, first of all, philosophical articulation, as you always do, Eli, which I personally love, and a lot of our audience and yours does respectfully love. But it also begets the opportunity for me to say something to you about that, and to my audience as well. Well, both sides, respectively, in this open forum that we always have. I want to be really clear about this with you and the audience. This channel was started out of obedience to the Lord as a Christian. It's not something I wanted to do. I was comfortable behind the scenes. You have been tasked by God or Yeshua to, you're a humble guy, as I know you to be, but to your own admonition, sometimes a bit stubborn. Like I'm stubborn. A lot of people, I think, are stubborn in different ways. So it manifests, to use that word, in different ways. Some people it's stubborn about money. Some people it's stubborn about asking for help. Some people it's stubborn about their time, whatever. Um, it shows up in different idioms. But both you and I have been tasked with being pulled out of our comfort zone. I learned a long time ago, your comfort zone will kill you. Be comfortable in the uncomfortable. That is the comfort zone, right? And so, that being said, to everything that you said so beautifully and cogently, and I'm totally on board with you, this channel is an act of obedience because, yes, I'm comfortable in front of the camera. Yes, I can speak fluently and whatever. That's fine. But that's just because God has equipped me to do that for these purposes. But would I rather be behind the scenes, not taking the grief and the negativity and the haters and the minions and the trolls? Yeah. But it's about a bigger, like, why are we doing this? What's the overarching goal here? The overarching goal is to be in service, community, and using our talents. All that said, Eli, for me and our team, the money is a means to an end. It's not about being avaricious and, ooh, how much can I get and put in a bank? We don't even like the banks. Frankly, we're looking forward to being our own central bank, which is why we say diversify, so that you don't need to be on the beast system, so that you don't have to be dependent on them to control you anymore, and so that you can help your fellow brother and sister one to one, peer to peer, like you and I are going to do, and like we're doing in this particular channel. So your, as my interpretation of what you're doing that I love is, it's your spiritual outreach, connecting with soul, connecting with God, and connecting with self. It's the intertwining of that. We're doing much the same thing in a complementary fashion on our side. It's just that the calling for us has been the financial reset because of this wonderful team we have and their ability to put these pieces together. But at the end of the day, Eli, it's just like us as musicians. When we write a song, we have to go, hey, dummy, what's the point? What are you trying to say? What's the bullseye? What's the message? Because you have 3, maybe 4 minutes at current rate. Hopefully in the future that will change, but you have, unless you're reaching a Grateful Dead audience, you have 3 to 4 minutes to get your point across, is what I'm saying. You have a bullseye. And so we have one here. And for us, we're trying to get this community to think and change their mindset, take action, and so where they prosper. So money is a means to an end. When we're on the other side of it, it won't matter. Now, what I always ask my audience to think about and challenge them in a loving way is, what is your wealth tolerance, right? Because money is like like a home. It's relative, right? To some people, a 3 bedroom house is a mansion. To some people, it's a vacation home. It's so wealth is the same way. Like to some people, $1 million is going to be a lot of money. They couldn't even imagine having that much. Other people, that's paltry. They think much bigger. So we always have to think about your wealth tolerance. We're going to have things like replicators in the future. We've already got med beds sitting on the sidelines. We found out that Trump and the military are actually working with the hospitals to phase them in. And the way we know that is I had a family member go in the hospital recently and they were having trouble getting a room for 2 days. Why would that happen? That never happened before. Our friend Kathy in Kentucky, who's shown us, I've shown pictures to you of the mobile units that are out there in Kentucky that she met with a managing director at a hospital who told her back in May, if you remember, point blank, that they're phasing in new light and frequency therapies, aka med beds. I don't know if they knew that or they couldn't say it, but it's manifesting itself. It's showing itself. All that is to say that our modality of calling, of reaching people, is through the money for the same purposes as you, as a means to an end. So it's like you and I, Eli, we're going to meet somewhere for coffee somewhere. But the road that we take to get there may be a very different and divergent one, but it complements and it forks in the road at an apex point, right? And that road is truth, servitude, and humility, which we both work really hard to do. And that's why I think we complement each other so well. But I just want to be clear to our audiences that this isn't about, because I see some of the comments are really nasty, like, oh, this is all about money and money, love, money is the root of all evil. No, it's not. That's legalism of the religious spirit getting in the way. What the Bible actually says is the love of anything over God is evil. Your family, your car, your job, your spouse, money, your children. That can be an idol that goes above God. Sorry to be the spoiler, folks, but the reality is anything that's above the Lord Yeshua is evil. So money is not evil inherently of itself. It's how it's used. It's the heart, right? You and I both agree. God looks at the heart because that's where all the actions come out of, right? The Bible says the heart is wicked. Who can know it? Only God. So he knows our true intentions. So all that I'm sorry to say is that money is the vehicle we've been using to get through to people because that's been the calling mechanism for which we've been chosen. But at the end of the day, it's never been about avariciousness and greed. It's about generosity and service and freeing people up from the constraints of mental and physical and financial bondage. And so I'm really glad that you and I work together in concert every month to do our best to achieve that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I didn't mean to say that,
No.
that's studying the markets, because what at the end of the day, what being your own investor, and like I had a pension fund and all this stuff. I took all my money out and invested it the way I wanted to invest it. So at the end of the day, becoming sovereign about your money situation is really the take home, is really the victory. It's really, like I said, that the victory would be a new kind of consciousness where you just know things. So too with money. The reason that Danielle and I mean, there's some weeks where we have like zero, I mean, the bank, we are in we've invested a lot of money into this land project. So all our money basically goes, whatever money I get from like pensions and this kind of stuff goes directly into the land. We don't even get to see it. So we are really doing, I think, what you're talking about, which is I have a little bit of crypto, I have a little bit, I invest in DJT. I love that stock because it it's a consistent earner. I'm questioning now. I'm starting to question. It's like I've been hodling XLM and XRP for 5 years. It was supposed to go to the moon 5 years ago. And I'm thinking to myself, I might be better taking some of that out and investing into DJT stock, because I know it's going to go triple. I know to buy it under 20, and I know, now I know when it gets to 60, sell some of it. But this kind of financial flexibility and being able to like say, okay, I got, I still have like 5 ounces of silver in my, and in my pocket. How can I pay we have to buy a certain amount of, we buy, grass-fed beef, and farm, we drink raw goat's milk and this kind of thing. It costs a fortune. But
Mm.
some, we struggle. We don't have, for us to sound like millions or thousands. It's more like, do we have $100 to buy some meat this week? But I think I'm agreeing with you completely, because I think what we're going to gain from this kind of, not relying on experts, like you're talking about, your last guest is a big expert, and I understand, like, she has some old fashioned ways of thinking about it. We all do. I think there was something I saw on the web recently that said, we, as humans, our brain is not wired for change. We like to stay where we're in our comfort zone, like you say, and
Right.
to get out of that comfort zone is so important. So, like, if you're relying on an investment manager, I mean, it might be okay. I know some people have done really well just to stick with the old system. I think that the financial victory that you're really behind is the idea of being a sovereign investor, and being in control of your money, and buying what you need to be, and you need to use, and what you need, and getting out of the fear space, because so many of us live, and myself included, in abject fear about the finances, because you can't really do so well right now. It's very hard to do well, because with the inflation and everything else, and the instability, and the gold and the silver and the this and the that's, you have to be very fast on your feet. And at the end of the day, what I see as, and I think you really are a great example of this, is the idea is that you're passing on to people the idea that they all can do it, that you can do it yourself, that you can get on Coinbase, you can buy a little, put a little silver under your sink or wherever you feel safe, or I, that you are in control of your own destiny. That is part of this whole programming escape thing that we're heading for. And this is, I totally, I'm not in any way saying, that you're about money. I think it's absolutely brilliant, and it's probably where the rubber hits the road the most. It's probably the most important aspect of your life, that you need to feel that you are in control. I mean, and that you can trust your instincts. I mean, I often get, like, with my investing, you know, I know the difference between me getting emotional, and wanting to buy something because it's going up, and me being like, I'll get a voice like, you need to get out of this, you need to get out of the market right now. Just get out. I listen to those voices, because I believe in myself, and I've been doing this for enough years that I haven't amassed fortunes, but I'm always able to get what I really, really need. Oh,
Sorry, I had muted so I didn't interrupt you. Yeah, absolutely agree with you. And I wasn't implying that you were saying that. That was more of me speaking to both of our respective audiences to be clear that we're both on the same page, that don't get bogged down in the quagmire details that suggest that because we talk about finances so much that that's all we think about. Because we have brothers like you and sisters on that are not financial to make that point, that the money it's again, it's a means to an end. So it's a Red Sea moment, right? And you got to go in the vehicle you're in to get to the other side. And I understand for a lot of people, they can't see the other side. We understand that this God puts on certain blinders and scales to certain people's eyes for a reason. And he picks certain people. I don't know why. He picked Moses. Moses didn't want to be picked. He used Joseph. He used David. He used a lot of different, he's been using people. God qualifies the unqualified. He uses somebody like me who doesn't, I mean, I have a business background and I know finances, obviously, and I've been an entrepreneur, but, I didn't go to Wharton School of Business. I didn't go to Harvard by choice, but I did for music. That's, Berklee College of Music. But the point is, at the end of the day, business is business. whether it's soybeans, cattle, or commodities, it's all the same thing at the end of the day. But it's funny, Eli, because it's challenging the construct of thought is what you're talking about to my mindset. And with that in mind, a lot of these people that we interview, like Lynette, like Bill Holter, like Andy Scheckman, Greg Manorino, all great people. I mean, really cool to talk to off camera. We brought them in with the express purpose of enlightening our audience so that they could I was thinking about this on my walk today. You would appreciate that, doing your walk in the field. I was thinking about, it's like, it's so ironic, right, Eli? Because we brought in all these people month to month with the express idea and concept of expanding the breadth and depth of the financial situation so that people could make the best choices, because I'm not a financial advisor, thank God. And this isn't this finance is constituting financial advice. It's just giving you really good information and puzzle pieces so that, to your point, what you do with it is up to you. Self-governance is what we're about, right? Instead of being a part of the problem, you get to be a part of your own solution. But the ironic part is that as we bring these subject matter experts in, we're actually educating them about the godly global reset, because I laugh about it with my friends. You'll appreciate this, but I don't know if you ever saw that movie, The Big Short. Did you ever see that? Watch it sometime with Daniel. It's very entertaining. It's about this guy, Dr. Michael Burry. This is about the '08 bailout when we went through the 16 years ago, and they bailed the banks out and basically just Ponzi schemed themselves a bunch of money. Everybody knows that now in the aftermath. We're going through an inverse pattern now where we're reverse engineering the whole thing for good. They're trying to bail in because they're on their way out, meaning the old system. Now, I was with Lynette today, and she even admitted on camera that this is a global reset. This is a global wealth transfer. What she does not understand yet, and we pray she'll get there along with other people, is that, so I'm calling myself facetiously the Michael Burry of the wealth transfer, follow me on this, because everybody would agree that gold and silver are God's money, and it's been around since the beginning of time and before time, and it's invaluable, and they used to pay people in salary, salt. That's where the term salary comes from, is from salt, derivative, as you know, in the old Jewish traditions, right? That's an absolute, universal absolute between both of our worlds, Christian and Hebrew, still the same thing. So it's good to make those connections. So Michael Burry basically saw, Eli, that the entire real estate market was crap. It was a Ponzi scheme, and all those bonds tied to it were fraudulent. So it would take good debt and bad debt. It would be like financial cross-contamination is a good way to look at it. Like you wouldn't do with food. You don't want to do that with finance. So he saw what everybody else didn't see. He said, short the market, get out of it. It's crap. It's all fake. And everybody got upset with him, but he was ultimately right. Which is ironic, because you talked about the stock market. He actually just dropped 50% of his portfolio because, like everybody else, he knows the writing on the wall. And other good news that proves we're winning is Soros, who I don't think is around anymore, liquidated 7 properties to one of his business partners, dumping it because he knows that the residential real estate is about to take a huge dump, quite literally. So I say that I'm facetiously the Michael Burry of the global reset, because one of the central themes that we have with these types of subject matter experts that I've already mentioned is they all universally agree that gold and silver is valuable. What they fail to understand is those same physical mechanisms of gold and silver are tie-ins to the cryptos, are tie-ins to the bonds like Zimbabwe, are tie-ins to the currencies. And this is probably a good segue, Eli, to talk about the financial stuff, if you're okay with that, briefly, which is that, because you know the background, which is that we have arguably, in our humble team's opinion, the most important summit that's ever happened in the history of modern civilization in the BRICS, less than 2 weeks from now in Kazan, which is outside of Moscow, Russia, which Putin is hosting. He spent considerable time with Trump putting this together. Again, for those who don't know, BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, okay? And all those sub-countries within those respective countries and continents, et cetera, coming together to converge, to de-dollarize away from the global central bank cabal system. We just had yesterday, I believe it was Cuba, Sri Lanka are joining. Iraq's already been part of it. And this is kind of exciting. Eli, I want to show you something. We talked about this, about XRP, because Lynette had some cognitive dissonance regarding the pegging and the backing of XRP being proven. So I'd like to show you something here real briefly that we can get your feedback on, and it is thusly. Let me know when you can see it.
Yeah, I got it.
So back on August 12th, John G., one of our great team members I always talk about, too humble to mention his accomplishments, but we know what he brings to the table amongst the many. He found this article, and I asked him to help me to prove to Lynette that XRP was legit. So yes, okay, they have been temporarily appealed, but it means nothing because they're running into the safety of BRICS because Russia doesn't give a crap about sanctions. It means nothing. They have so many countries, almost 160 countries in total between the ones established and the ones vying to get in, that they have such an maelstrom of population, over 80% of the world's population, and they can disregard what the US deep state cabal says and say, screw you, I don't care, I'm going right around you. XRP already did it, and we're about to prove it. As you can see in this article dated August 12th, where my cursor is, XRP worked with India. Interestingly enough, Eli, I don't know if you knew this, India a couple months ago made a rather massive, large oil purchase with China using the petro yuan, but they had to have a mechanism to connect it. What did they use? XRP. Even Lynette has now tacitly acknowledged this, right? So we had a couple weeks ago, Eli, on your old stomping ground of New York and the useless nations over on 47th, or as affectionately we both know, Dag Hammarskjöld is what that area is constituted as, since I lived on 46th and 2nd, between 2nd and 1st, if you know the area. They had a big General Assembly 2 weeks ago, came and went, and most people thought it was business as usual. It was not, because what all those countries said, including Prime Minister Soudani of Iraq, said peace and prosperity are our number one goal. And it's time to bring back Iraq regionally and internationally the way it deserves. Then he hustled off stage real fast. You had Zambia and many other countries asking for what? Debt relief, Jassara. So this summit in less than 2 weeks represents the decoupling and de-dollarizing of the entire world's economy. You have another 50 basis point hike coming for the interest rates, which they're going to try to sell as a great thing for buying homes. That is a panic mode, just like 16 years ago, in reverse now, Eli, to where that's admitting that the dollar is crap. And you know that because you just said it's costing more for food, for gas, for insurance, for whatever daily mainstays you have. Bill Holter calls it an inverse effect, meaning a hyperinflation of the things we need, right? Your household goods, and a hyperdeflation of the things we have, your home, the cash you have on hand. And you know that simply because it's costing more to buy the same crap you bought a week, a month, a year, 5, 10, 20 years ago, hike. It's all right there, right? Now, here's another interesting article. We'll switch over to here. This couple days ago, Ripple and Mercado tying with Bitcoin to partnered cross-border payments in Brazil. More BRICS talk, more proof that they're going around it, right? Now, for those who want to know with XRP, you asked me this question a million times. Where do I get it? You can get it on Coinbase, Coinbase. You can now also get it on Robinhood. It's another great place to get it. Yes, you can always get it on Uphold, but it takes a few days to get the transfer. So that's why Coinbase is incentivizing people to go there, because it's much more in line with real-time transactions. But what's going on right now, Eli, is Soudani is, let me stop this. Soudani of Iraq is in a good place. They are digitizing their new system, getting on with the electronic system. They are talking about reforms. They just had an article that shows they have an uptick in population in Iraq. Why is that significant? Because they're going to need to have more reconstruction projects. When you bring, as you know, being a New Yorker, you bring a lot of people into an area, you got to build stuff to sustain the population, to maintain all that momentum, all that energy, the frequency of people. Yes, frequencies. So likewise, they're building the largest building in Baghdad, the central bank of Iraq, which we showed you last time, larger than even Dubai, because Iraq is going to be a powerhouse to be reckoned with for a long period of time. And when they talked about the construction, they talked about reforms. They're ultimately talking about bringing back the rate in the private sector, not in Forex. That's the Ministry of Planning, which we've discussed. I'm doing this again for posterity repetition. People need to hear things apparently 100 times to get it through their head. Here we are. There's 3 things that Iraq, as we see it, Eli, needs to do. They need to, if just give me a second here, I'm going to open up my notes and I'll read it to you if you just bear with me one moment, because it's better if I read it to you verbatim. So I put this out. I don't know if you're on my Telegram, but I put this out earlier today. 3 points of attack. We need Israel, your country, to hit the secret nuclear power plants of Iran. Well, we've been talking about that for a while. You're seeing an uptick on that. They're finishing Hezbollah and they're going into Iraq, Iran next. And we know that because Soudani has said to the Iranian factions inside Iraq, get out now, because he knows what's coming. Number two, remove the currency auctions, remove the dollar money laundering, right? They've already said before the end of the year that's going to happen. They're siphoning off the dollar because the Iranian proxies within Iraq and the entire mainstay of the world has been living on the dollar hegemony by force, not by design or desire. That is now changing vis-a-vis BRICS. Number three, removing the corrupt files. What's Trump doing over here? He's got RFK Jr. talking about all the patents and removing fluoride in the water and removing the poisons in the food. What happened with the trucking supply shortage that happened over in New York with the 45,000 seaport workers? They were removing poisons in the food, and those trafficked women and children in those crates that were making the workers sick to have to realize they were complicit in an industry that would be rife with this, right? So behind the cloak and dagger of a union strike, that's what they were doing, moves and counter moves. So basically, they're removing the corrupt files in Iraq, which is going to implicate Maliki and a whole bunch of other bastards over there. And all those rats are going to be like sinking ship. Basically, what I'm saying to you is, as we see it, we're sitting, Eli, right now, both financially, geopolitically, spiritually, all the isms. Counting today, the most important 3 weeks, arguably, in our modern human history as we see it, facing us smack dab right in the face right now, because we've got all these events happening. We've got a hurricane, another one, I think, was it Milton or something in Florida now. Pray for my family out there in South Florida that it just goes straight out to sea. We rebuke that in Jesus' name. We get it out. We cast it out into the sea in Yeshua's mighty name. And actively taking, as you would agree, the power of prayer and manifestation of calling out the demons is something that we can all collectively do, right? We've got that. We've got the Supreme Court is reconvening right now. People think nothing's happening. We just had Lloyd Brunson on last week. He has a shadow case in there. We believe it's already been heard, but it will start to come out optically right before the election. What a coincidence. Oh, yeah, that's right. There are. Okay. So then you have that. You have the aforementioned BRICS summit, right? You also are going to have, you talked about the stock market. Now, we're not giving financial advice, but point of fact, what did we have in October of 2008? We had massive market corrections, right? The deep state was using John McCain, who was not an honorable man, sorry, but he wasn't, to say that the economy is good. Now Trump is reverse engineering it using Kamala and Waltz, whoever these people are, to say the economy is good, everything's great, when we know it's not. So reverse engineering as an example. So we have all that stuff going on and converging over the next 3 weeks. We had Derek Johnson on yesterday. I asked him point blank, are we going to have an election? Everybody wants to know. If we are, what's going to go on? He said, well, two things. If we have one, it's because we're supposed to have one, and military and police presence will be there surreptitiously to oversee the corruption. If you see something, say something. Two, he said, you could march down to your polling place where you always go in the past and find out it's not there, nothing's happening, and that tells you your answer. So in the next 3+ weeks, we're going to have a lot of these answers become revealed to us. But we're sitting in a very exciting time for those who can see at a 30, 50,000 foot vantage point above the fray of their everyday stuff, and understanding that it's hard for everybody to do that. That's why we're, attempting to do these podcasts to shed some light on it. So I don't know, hopefully that gives you something good to work with.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is brilliant. This is something I haven't picked up on. This is something that I thought was thinking or came to me is
Please.
that we call it the timeline shift. So what happened in 2008 has to happen again in a good way. Just
Mhm.
like what happened in 2020 with the election has to happen in a good way. It has to be a timeline shift. So, I mean, personally, I think the election in some form will have to go through just for people to feel like we came, we heard, they cheated, they did this, and we won. And to empower humanity to believe in themselves, and not to fall into this trap of CBS having some expert come out, so-called expert come out, who's really just an arm of the deep state, and coming out and brainwashing us with some idiotic ideas. I saw a thing today about it was they were correcting, let's see, it was, oh yeah, Leslie Stahl, who I actually went to high school with, and married a friend of mine. But Leslie Stahl came out and said to Trump, no, you're wrong about the Hunter laptop, and she lied, and she got away with it. And it's like, these people, they do not have humanity's interests in mind. They are brainwashed beyond belief. I grew up with these people. They're absolute idiots. And, they never really, back in the day, in the 60s, when things were really, when there were people, well, actually, Leslie Stahl, I think she was kind of but in other words, the same people who missed the revolution, then all became big revolutionaries. Actually, I remember Mara Liasson as well from my high school. But these people are all they just never got past this liberal brainwashing. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how I got into this stream, but the bottom line is that these people are just like, they're like, they're super rational. They're like negative instinctual. They're like, just instinctually, they just say, oh no, that can't be, that's, we don't accept that. Whereas where we're going as a culture is into the idea of a positive kind of intuitive nature, where we will constantly, and this is something you put really brilliantly, but we will be embracing change. We'll be like, I live to change. They said about my Rebbe Menachem Schneerson, that he was never the same person 2 days in a row. And that's not and you would think, by normal cultural measures, that would, you know, that would classify you as like a schizophrenic madman. But no, that's the way people should be. We should be constantly growing and changing. And I think being abreast and being an active participant in this, I hold XRP, I hold XLM, I hold a little silver, a little gold. I invest in DJT. I just, you got to be fast and flexible here, because you don't know. My big question, I mean, I don't really understand. I was told years ago that Bitcoin was really like a fraudulent and like, unlike XRP and XLM, which actually do something, that Bitcoin did nothing. It was slow, and it was backed by what is it, the Tether, which is another, it's kind of like another um fiat currency scam. So I don't know why people are always talking about like the futures in Bitcoin, when I'm confused. Maybe you can enlighten me with this. I made a little money in Bitcoin around 2020, but I got out of it when I heard that it's a scam, and it doesn't do anything, and it's slow, and it's, I don't know. But I hear Trump talking about Bitcoin. So I'm actually thinking to myself, after 5 years of avoiding it, of like, maybe I should invest in a little Bitcoin. I don't know, because my XRP has been, my XLM has been at 9 cents for 5 years. So, this is an area, maybe what are your thoughts about Bitcoin?
Sure. Well, a lot to unpack there. So let's take it like an elephant, one piece at a time, because you said a lot of good things inside of that. Funny you mentioned Leslie Stahl. I tend to like to rhyme things or come up with creative isms, just the creativity of our mindsets. And I used to see her on TV, and I never felt even before I was awake, like, I'm talking 20, 30 years ago, before I mean, I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't, put my finger on it like I can now. I used to call her Leslie stall tactic because it always seemed like she was like stalling her guests and trying to manipulate and, you know, interrupt and trying to control the narrative. Even back then, I sensed that. Um, President Reagan used to say, and Derek Johnson said that yesterday, he would be probably one of the few people not implicated with all the other presidents, like the Bushes and the Sorteros and the Clintons and all the rest of those scumbags. Um, Reagan used to say a very good quote about this, Eli. Maybe you recall it. He said, it's not that people are dumb, it's just they know so much it isn't so. Very diplomatic way of saying the same thing in a turn of phrase. So that's probably how I would constitute her and many of the media so-called moguls who, are they really in control? Because you're starting to, I mean, did you notice, Eli, last week, Prime Minister, I think it's Bennett, the Prime Minister of Israel right now, if I'm not mistaken, came on CNN, Communist News Network, fake news, and said in front of the whole world, which we put in our Telegram, if you see it there for posterity, because people who are on that know that we put a lot of information, timely information at that every single day. Came out and said on CNN, yeah, we're going to hit the power plants of Iran. They're vulnerable and weak, and we have to do it now. It's now or never, basically, paraphrasing. I almost fell off my chair because you never see those guys tell the truth. I mean, they would even tell you the truth about what they had for lunch, let alone the real stuff, So to see the fake news not be fake for once told me maybe they're being infiltrated more than we know, because we don't see all there is to see, right? Isaiah 58, my ways and thoughts are higher than your ways and thoughts. And there's a new thing that God's doing in this season. So transitioning from that point to your question about Bitcoin, I think it was, you're going to see XRP once this nonsensical appeal, they're just delaying our wealth transfer. They're not going to be able to do it very long. And when that does, you're going to see XRP break free to $1. I'll give you a hint. When it goes to the $15 to $30 mark, watch for the dinar to happen publicly. I want to make a note of that, people. Just saying. We don't do dates or rates. I'm just giving you a marker. Okay, so that's that. That will affect XLM. It'll be a domino effect whereby once one goes, the others start to go and they start to cascade on each other. Shout out to Garrett for that term, by the way, domino effect, when I know he's watching this. He had said that to me like 5 years ago, and he's been absolutely right. And whatever they're telling us is, do the opposite, do the inverse, reverse engineering. Now, to your point about Bitcoin, I don't currently own any because I'm not in a position to. However, Bitcoin is a we're in a season where God is going to be taking things that were meant for harm, Genesis 50:20, and using them for good. Bitcoin is one. It has been nefarious. It will now be decentralized crypto like XRP, because you can actually hold it and control it in your private wallet, where you can't do that with many other cryptos. Some you can, some you can't. CBDCs come to mind. You don't want any part of that anyway. I think our audience knows that well by now. But that's where they want to steer people. So it's just a matter of using your godly discernment, or you would say using your spirit voice to channel proper discernment about, when you have peace about something, right? Typically, that's usually a good decision to go in one way. If you don't have peace, or you have a hesitation, or something doesn't quite feel right, don't overanalyze why you feel that way. Trust your instincts. They're there for a reason from the Lord. I think ultimately Bitcoin was bad. It will be used for good as a decentralized currency. It will come off the SWIFT system. They will asset back it in some form of gold, right? These things will work in concert. That's part of what BRICS is wholly here to do, is to merge the countries, merge the assets, merge the mechanisms. We believe Bitcoin, there's going to be a buying opportunity for God's people here in the near future, whether that's, I don't know, a month, 2, 3 months. It's coming very soon. And you just set your buy sell limit orders on Coinbase. We believe it's going to get down to somewhere between 10 and 20,000. And when it does, there's a great opportunity if you can do it. Post RV, I think, is a good example of that, right? Dinar, whatever. Think of the reset as like owning your own business. If you own a business, right, or people, Eli, that own a business, what's the first, a lot of Jewish business owners, what's the first thing that they do? They take their profits and then they pay off their debts, whatever, and then they redivest back into the business to keep it going. And then the rest is for themselves to do with discretionary income. That's how we think people should govern themselves in this new wealth transfer, if that makes sense. If you can visualize that. like a pie. You cut it up in sections, and every piece of pie has its own purpose. So we believe Bitcoin's going to go pretty high, like 250,000 plus. So if you can get it down at that lower rate when it comes up, it's going to bounce back because it's going to be used for what was nefarious into something good. Now, some people that will resonate with, and some people it won't, and that's fine. I talk to people all day long that, somebody like Andy Sheckman is a good example. Because he's on other podcasts, his scope is opened up, including ours, that he now realizes it's not just gold and silver. There is cryptos, there are foreign currencies, there are bonds that I could take advantage of and expand my mindset, right? And then we have somebody like Bill Holter, who's a John Wayne, gold and silver. That's it. He ain't going to change his mind for anything. We don't try to. We just work within the constructs of what he knows and believes. So bear with me a minute. God understands us better than we will ever understand ourselves. Consequently, he knows what we can and can't handle, right? Some people, their wealth transfer is just gold and silver. Some people, it's gold and silver and crypto. Some people, it's just crypto. Some people, it's just currencies. And on it goes. It interchanges, it interlocks. It isn't about trying to fight about who's right and who's wrong. It's about the wealth tolerance you can contend for, how much of the 100-fold or 5-fold you can manage or want to manage, right? And what God is tasking you to do. Some people, he just wants you in this box, own a little bit of land, and do this, and that's it. Other people, he opens the floodgates a lot deeper. So it isn't so much about who's right or who's wrong. It's about staying in your lane and doing what he's tasked you to do, and being blessed in what you have, becoming debt free, becoming your own central bank. So I can't tell you whether or not to invest in Bitcoin. I can just tell you the facts of what we see coming. I would say take what you've acquired today, take it to what you call your Rebbe or your spirit man, right? If I'm saying that right, and look for discernment. For me, that's Jesus. I go to him for discernment, and sometimes he gives it to me right away. Sometimes it takes a while, but it always comes at the right time. We always say on our channel, Eli, God's never late or early. He's always right on time. It's just not on our time. That's the frustrating part. You muted.
Yeah, I really enjoyed our time together. Yeah, I muted it because the wind. We're kind of on the top of a ridge, so the wind makes a lot of noise. So and
Sure.
also I'm running my generator right now. So we're out in the remote area in the
The wild blue
Mojave Desert.
yonder.
Yeah, so it's really
Well,
this is my main investment is really 170 acres of unlivable mountainous area, but I love it. So yeah, you're right. I think you're right that in financial matters, sovereignty or your being your own creator and being in your comfort zone is really where it's at. But I really enjoyed talking to you, and it's
yeah, always,
always
brother.
yeah.
Well, last words as always for the audience, and where can people find your work?
I'm back on YouTube. I'm doing a live broadcast every day on YouTube, sort of analyzing various aspects. It's a homesteading channel as well.
Mhm.
I think if you just did a Google search for Ellie Weber, there are a couple of Ellie Webers, ELIWEBER Weber. But I'm on YouTube again, and I'm doing a live at various times during the day from Sunday to Friday.
Great. Awesome. We'll post that as we always do. And folks, as you know, if you are looking to get gold and silver, acquiring more, we have a great relationship that we have there. We'll leave in the description. Same with currencies, looking for dinar, dong, zim, rupiah, and yes, bolivar, because we always get that invariably. We have a great relationship there as well. And we will also leave those links in the description, respectively. Eli Weber, good friend and brother Mensch, thanks for being here today. We love having you, and we look forward to seeing you again shortly.
Thanks so much, and a happy new year.
Happy New Year, brother.
Okay, bye.